the Mohatta Palace Museum. Delighted to have you with us for our distinguished lecture series celebrating the 25 years of the Mohatta Palace Museum. By way of introduction, I'm Saima Zaidi, additional curator here at the museum. I'd like to invite our managing trustee, Mr. Hamid Haroon, please. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're trying to establish new timings for Mohatta functions. Tariq Alexander particularly is a very difficult man. And so instead of starting at 6 sharp, we started trying to start by 6:10, but I thought I'd come before his time, so we don't need to be at his time. Tariq is not an ordinary person from Mohatta. He's a very close member and supporter of the Mohatta community, as indeed most of you are, that I can see. I think that Tariq's new project is very exciting for us. He's working on two sets of things, the restoration and restructuring, but not the raising of the annex. And from his busy practice on the environment and his less busy practice on architecture, I'm sure he'll find the time. The second thing that Tariq is doing, which is remarkable and will make all of you very happy, you remember that statue from Fair Hall, which became part of the bequest of the Mohatta Palace Museum by Kamal Asfar 25 years ago, the then governor of Sindh and Fahim Zaman, who was administrator of Karachi. We will now be placing these statues to display with lighting in the courtyard and in the courtyards and on the fringes of the gardens, so you can enjoy them once again. So that's a good feeling. And Tariq, needless to say, has not only had hold them with cranes and looked at them and measured up the spaces, he's also designing the blitz for us. As a pro bono function, we try and make Tariq do things like that all the time. And he's generally very good about it. Very quickly, I want to thank a group of people who happen to be trustees of the museum, particularly their constant support. And I can see that Hamid Siddiqui is present today from the trustees. Hamid Ahun, who went through 6 months of terrible illness, and is now on his feet again and working at the Endowment Fund Trust and at Mohatta, could not be with us today because of a minor ailment, but I'd like to pay tribute to his work, which has made all of this possible. It was his idea originally to put together something to commemorate the 25 years of the Mohatta Palace Museum, which is a distinct entity from the Mohatta Palace itself. So my thank you to Hamid, who I just spoke to on the phone. He sent his regards and best wishes to all of you. And I would like to thank Tawfiq Jalal, who works with the trustees, that has worked a bit round the clock on this from Dubai and in Karachi. As for the season itself, there are 13 events which have been organized for the season, between the kick-off today with Tariq Qaiser to the last one, which was on March the 7th. Today is a night at the Ayesha Tammy Haq, with Tariq Alexander Qaiser and Tammy Haq, the great vocalists of the Pakistani Ghazal tradition, music, lecture and demonstration by the famous composer Arshad Mahmood and the famous Sitar Nawaz and music academic Ustad Nafis Ahmed. They'll be speaking about Abda Tawfiq, Farida Khanum, Ghulam Ali, Mehdi Hassan, and some of the big voices that have made the Ghazal such a powerful form. It will be followed by Orthabina Shah with Ayesha in When Words Speak the Truth. And then a special event for me at any rate. Finally, after 20 years of work, Nahid Asfar will be speaking on a forthcoming 5-volume work, The Balochistan Nama, A Cultural Odyssey. And the topic will be the enigma of the Roach tribal embroideries. That will be followed by the art of the Hansanama, a highly exciting session with Fakir Jazuddin, who is a cultural historian and is from Lahore, who will be speaking on that Pariatelia in the 16th century, from 1570 onwards, and the magnificent work of synthesis they were able to achieve between indigenous traditions and the Persian miniature tradition. His wife, and it's only incidental that she happens to be his wife, Shahnaz Ijazuddin, will be speaking on her participation in the work, the monumental translation of the Face of Hoshova, which is the stories of Abu Hamza, and to activate and charge the atmosphere in the session, the Dastan Goi from the Hamza and the Face of Hoshova will be performed from two gentlemen from the National Academy of Performing Arts. This will be followed by The Hidden Caliphate, which is a well-known book. It's Walid Ziad will speak on it, Sufi saints beyond the Oxus and the Indus. Start again in Paris, where the brilliant Ali Mahdi will fly over to us as a birthday gift for the 25th anniversary at his own expense to speak on Start Again in Paris, the famous French period, how the Blue and Ochre period led to the French period and led to the monumental paintings of 1968. So that's a very exciting feature. He's one of the most fascinating people on Start Again, and I think you'll enjoy it. The legends of Urdu poetry in Sindh, Zehra Nigah, Dr. Afra Zehra, Hijaz Naqvi, and Ahmed Javed will speak on Mir Taki Mir, Khalid, Iqbal, and Friend Ahmed Faz, the greatest poets of the Urdu tradition. It must mean there's nobody else, but somebody has to bring in the masters in a field like this for you to be able to enjoy the rest. Then, a wonderful surprise for everybody, memories of a sign of the Mohatta family, in which Satwik Mohatta will fly over with members of his family to celebrate his grandfather's effort in building the Mohatta Palace. Another major session, A Tale of Two Cities, which is Ut Sharif and Multan, the famous work done by Yasmin Chima and Dr. Tanveer Hassan, who's now in London and is coming over for the lecture, will be supplemented by Hassan Ali Khan, whose Cambridge University Press publication on the legacy of the Sohrawardi order in Multan in the medieval period brings a very complex picture of the southern Punjab of two territories that were originally, and I hope no one here from the Punjab government is listening, part of Sindh. And then there is a surprise program which I won't go into, and it'll be two big speakers. So I won't tell you who they are, but they've been brought in as a gift from the Lahore Literary Festival. We're a bit hand-to-mouth in Mohatta, it doesn't mean we don't try. Followed by a magnificent grand concert to celebrate the 25th anniversary, where Adda Parveen is making an appearance at the Mohatta Palace Museum, and I would advise you to attend that, because anybody who knows Adda's music and knows the singing of the Shah Latif Wali and the Shah Jurad and the Sufi Kalam of Punjab and other parts of this region, including Rumi, I think will know that Adda herself believes that after she stopped making regular appearances in Hicksha, the greatest concerts in the country are at the Mohatta Palace Museum. She does them at almost no fee. It's a great massive public service, and I think you'll be entranced by her. Finally, Simon Devi, who you saw now, will be in conversation with one of my favorite people, Dr. Durya Qazi, on the visual culture of the Mazar and the Bazaar. So that completes the program. I won't take much of your time. Allow Simon to come back and take over. And please enjoy the festival. It was designed for all of you. Thank you.
So, taking up from where Mr. Harun took, This winter 2023 and spring 2024 series is for you, and it has been conceived as a bouquet for Karachi and the people of Sindh and, of course, Pakistan. And as Sunit Harun went into details about the particular sessions, I would like to also underscore that it covers a diverse range of topics related to culture. So that's art, architecture, design, which includes textile. Then we've got literature, history, heritage, and of course, ecology. Now to our first session titled Alive at the Edge of the Indus Delta, Cultural and Natural Histories of the Indus River, a conversation between Tariq Alexander Qaiser and Ms. Ayesha Tammy Haq. So over to you, please. Thank you.
Akbar sir, can we have the podium unit, please? No, the podium. Pause.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Well, thank you all very much for being here today. And just like to observe a moment of silence, and I'd like you to read the words here. Tariq has written this for the horrible crime that he committed in Punjab at Jahanwala and also for Gaza. So just a moment of silence.
I question why one does this. I question the love for a tree, for the leaf, for the soil, for the air that we breathe. But it is the soil that nurtures us. It is the soil where we put down our roots in harmony with the trees. The trees form communities, and communities nurture each other. We humans, we Homo sapiens, have forgotten that that is a basic premise of humanity. I cry when I leave the forests. I've been wandering the swamps for the last 15 years every Saturday. I am in tears. I'm in tears when I see what we are becoming and what we have been for all the centuries. And the words were pertinent 10,000 years ago. The words are pertinent 100 years ago. The words are pertinent today. They were a couple of months ago. They were and are and continue to be pertinent today. Humanity is going through an existential crisis. This is not a political crisis only. It is a crisis that will impact the way we will exist, and the way our grandchildren will exist. And what is necessary is to address the roots of what we are, who we are, and where we come from. My attempt is to express that limited amount of understanding that I have been privileged to touch upon only when I go into the wilderness. We go into the wilderness for hours. And there are several of you who have been with me, and I appreciate your presence here. Thank you for coming. And what I would like to say is that we will be in conversation. But if there is a question that is important during the pause, there'll be but 4 or 5 pauses in between. Please feel free to raise them. If they fit in and I'm able to answer them there and then, the conversation will be wider. But there will be a selection at the end to do this.
Can you hear me? Okay. So just to pick up from what Tariq was saying, I have been into the mangroves with him, into the delta, gone along the trees, and we see our best efforts at work where we're doing whatever we possibly can to destroy as much as we can and as quickly as we can. But somehow nature seems to fight back. And I think that it's wonderful that there are so many people here today because maybe we can all get together and give nature a hand and try and stop this wanton destruction. So we've got, what we're going to do is we're going to start with a short film. It's a 3.5 minute film, which begins with takes Tariq's story from the very beginning. So we start at daybreak, and it's close to cityscape. So could you have a person, please?
This has been a journey, and this journey starts on the shores of our habitations and the inhabitants that form this ecosystem. The ecosystem is part of us as humans, and our relationships are exploitative and symbiotic. Yes, they are symbiotic. It's in the very magic. And our urban shores are stressed.
कबीरा जब हम पैदा हुए कबीरा जब हम पैदा हुए जग हंसे हम रोए
Kabir, when we were born,
ऐसी करनी कर
we cried even when we were laughing.
हम हंसे जग रोए
When we laughed, we cried.
पत्थर पूजत हरि मिले
If I pray to rock, let me pray to a mountain.
पत्थर पूजत हरि मिले बड़े पहाड़
This is the key for this podcast.
पत्थर पूजन मिले तो पूजूं बड़े पहाड़
If I pray to rock, let me pray to a mountain.
पत्थर पूजन हरि मिले तो पूजूं बड़े पहाड़ ताते को तकलीफ
Kabir, there is one well. The blessings are many.
कबीर कुआं एक है मनियारी अनेक बर्तन सबके न्यारे न्यारे
Everyone has these wonderful vessels. The water is the same.
took you out first?
Before I say that, uh, the lesson learned in the nexus between humanity, humans, inhabitants, and in the natural world is that there is an order, but the world of us humans, there is this great disparity in the order. And we know that. But when you go out into these wildernesses, and this is what drew me there, there is the sense of oneness, and there's the sense of belonging, and there's this openness of communication if you keep silent. And what took me out there was inborn. I've always sought spaces of solitude, looked for places where I can go and explore. And when I found these forests, which were accidental to me, uh, I spent maybe 6, 7 years just exploring, mapping, understanding the channels, and simply enjoying it. And realize that none of us knew that these existed in our city, in our backyard. They're 15 minutes away from Karachi. Sorry, let me just adjust this. They're 15 minutes away from Karachi by slow boat. दूसरा माइक ऑफ कर देंगे वो फीडबैक हो रहा है एक ऑफ कर दें so they're just 15 minutes away from Karachi and it's in our backyard. Yet none of us have had experienced them, so I very selfishly photographed them and I started to write books and I write my poetry and just enjoy it. And the understanding comes because there seemed to be a slight lacuna. There was a lot of cut stumps. And suddenly, the cutting started again. And it became imperative that I not only share my experiences, but I start talking about the fact that these incredible trees that were cut. There was this one tree which had a girth of about 4 feet, trunks, about 1.5 foot, 18 to 20 inches wide, arms that came out. Nurjan, you're here, we use that picture at the Biennale. And there are these incredible trees. And in 2016, I first photographed it in 2011. Every year, 2 times, I would do a small pilgrimage. I'd go there, I'd go to the tree, I'd photograph it, say hello to it, I'd come back, I talk about it, and my children told me, don't talk about trees anymore, you've had enough. So it was there to that intensity. And 2016, I witnessed it being cut. I was there when the woodcutter's water bottle was still lying, leaning against the tree, and the sawdust was on the mud. The tide had not had enough time to change, so I was there within 6 hours of that thing being cut. And I went home and I told my wife, I said, I can't go in anymore. Because previously I'd said that when they cut this tree, I will stop. And for 6 months I could not get on a boat and go into that forest. I started again, and the mission was important. The mission was important to communicate. It's difficult to stop the desire for profit, even if it's 20 rupees a kilo for this wood. This wood is 20 rupees a kilo. So the exploration and the expression of what I feel was very important to be communicated, and I hope I have done that to a certain degree. And thank you all for being here, because it's important. And
It's 20 rupees a kilo for a poor person in the Delta. I mean, they need firewood. They don't have gas. They don't have electricity. How do they cook? So, these are serious problems and there are real problems that are faced by the fishermen who are the poorest of the poor.
a friend of mine went into the mangroves off the boat cliff, and while he was on his boat, he discovered woodcutters cutting, and challenged them, and they turned around and said, "What can I do? I owe someone a lot of money. And yes, I don't earn anything much of it, but I have to pay off my loan, so I have to bring home a certain amount of wood on a regular basis." So he and his sons go in there, and it's the same scenario for wood, for the kilns, for the brickmakers. Uh, these are existential and very serious issues that need to be addressed in our communities, in our societies, in our governments. So yes, it is not the woodcutters who are taking this for profit.
No, it's not just the woodcutters, but you also have developers, and there are whole parts of the mangroves that have been destroyed completely for development. I mean, I know that the entire area along Michaelachi was mangroves, and now it's apparently a KPT colony, supposedly supposed to be one, and the mangroves keep fighting their way through the reclaimed soil and keep popping up, but that entire area was mangroves, and I remember maybe 30 years ago driving down there, and there were flamingos there, all kinds of birds. So, these things do matter, and I think sadly we tend to forget that mostly it's the well to do who are destroying the ecosystem. The guy who's chopping wood for 20 rupees a kilo is just about making ends meet. But it's these big developers that we have to watch out for. And I know that you've been out there, Tariq, and I think if we look at the fact that you had seaplanes flying in there, you have windmills, you have all kinds of things happening, there is a way for modernity to coexist with the tradition.
Absolutely, and it's complicated. It's not simple by any standards, and it is very deep. And it's a conversation that is necessary in groups where stakeholders who can do something about it would be there to listen. We'll address some of it today. Uh,
But
but
I think we should go to the next film.
I would like to
Yeah.
because this is something very special, and it has to do with our cultures and human habitations. This is about the Urs that happens on Bundle Island every year in the month of Rajab, and sometime January. So it'll be in January sometime this year, I think. I hope. Uh,
And we all know Bundle Island really well. It's been in the news a lot thanks to the efforts of not just Tariq but HN is here as well and a few other people. Tehmoon Mirza is not here with us today, but a lot of people have been out there documenting and doing things. Could we have the film?
It's about 4.5, 5 kilometers offshore from Ibrahim Hedri directly. Everyone comes by boat. Children dress up. Ladies come with their finery.
Tariq buys toys for everyone.
देखो हमारी गुरु का दूसरा तो चारा है नहीं, महंगाई बहुत बढ़ चुकी है। ये सालों साल से आके बच्चे तफरी करते हैं इधर पूरे हेदरी की। ये तो आज कुछ नहीं है, तो शुरुआत है। कल मेहनत करके खाने वाले आदमी सारे, हाँ खाने वाले, ये तो भी तो मामूली है। कल तुम देखना इंशाल्लाह तुम कितनी देखा नहीं। हाँ सुबह से शुरू हो जाएंगे। देखो कल है न्याज। अच्छा कुछ ऐसे हैं जो ये तो पहले आया, हमारे से 5 दिन पहले आया इधर बैठे हुए। तबरी होती है, गरीब आदमी क्या करेगा, ये सी तबरी करेगा और बुजुर्ग की हाजिरी भरेगा। ये बात है।
बहुत अच्छी है ना।
Those are the toys we bought them.
Ayesha Naqvi is with me here. Ayesha Naqvi is one of my companions, out of many of you that are here. We have a quest to get to the shrine. that has been attempted many times. This is the first time that we were able to. And this next segment is also one that HM joined me on. And we attempted to walk across Bundle Island to the shrine. And
It's not for the faint-hearted.
it is not for the faint-hearted. And Shahab Karamat is here. His daughter joined us with my son on that trip, and I'm thrilled to say that they eventually got married. So she's now my daughter-in-law. But the fact that this young lady made it across this island without complaining for about a 4.5, 5-hour trip, and on the return, HM will be witness to this. I got everyone lost in the middle of the night in the dark. And so we made it back, but it was one of the most exciting trips that I've had. So I'd like to show you a snippet of that experience. It was very eventful for me, for my life. It was very eventful for our quest to get here. But it wasn't the day in Urdu we say कि बुलावा नहीं आया था HM, है ना? Because then बुलावा नहीं आया था. So please शुरू करना. Oh, that video is coming next. This is another conversation, very important. Pitti is the podcasting channel.
बात ये है कि इस आदमी माईगिरी का कोई विलय नहीं, पहले बात है। जन माईगिरी गरीब आदमियों से कोई विलय नहीं है, पाकिस्तान में विलय नहीं है। हराम खोर जो आए नहीं, वो डेरा बना के बैठ गए खाने के लिए। गरीब बेचारा कुछ गुजारा करके तभी बच्चों को खिलाता है, अभी उसमें भी खतरा है। अभी देखो किसनी था, उधर रुकने नहीं देते, इधर खड़ा नहीं हो। उसके तरफ हम उसको पुठा बोलता था, उधर ओटियां बन गई। कहीं इधर बनेंगे, हमको बोले यहाँ से नहीं गुजरो, और हम चले जाएंगे। हमारा तो निजाम खराब हो जाएगा नहीं। चलो देखो पासपोर्ट को देखो, किसी को देखो, अभी डिग्गी को देखो, इतना जुल्म है हमारे ऊपर। बाकी ये तो हम नहीं छोड़ेंगे, ये हमारा जो औरत ने जो दिया है हमको, ये तो हम मरेंगे तब इधर आएंगे। ये हम नहीं करेंगे। हाँ, वो बात नहीं है। कोई खिदमत हो बता।
Tariq, you've seen horrible disparity, haven't you?
Our country, the world, our city, our waters, they're not just for the ones with power and with money. There has to be a new system of equity and balance. And that's one thing that nature teaches you. Nature is not friendly. Nature is dispassionate. And it works with what is needed and how it needs to develop. We need equality and equanimity. This is an interview with Tariq Mirza and myself. It's a necessary little segment.
We all understand the benefit of mangroves. They protect us from tsunamis and sea surges. They provide shelter to fishermen and villagers on the coastline. They absorb even more carbon than the rainforests do. They are a nursery for fisheries. They're so vital for marine health. Our delta has been the very reason that our shores and our coastline have been so prolific in the production of fish. Tariq Mirza is with me. He's a conservationist, a photographer, and a core member of our team.
The fact that this forest exists just adjacent to Karachi exists.
Exactly. And a large part of the population, Karachi, this concrete monstrosity, is totally unaware of it.
Absolutely.
And these islands out here on the windward side, and they provide that essential oxygen that is needed in the highly polluted industrial areas of Landi and Korangi and
All over Landi, Kurangi, and the rest of Karachi.
Yeah, the rest of Karachi.
But yet, this last section of these massive forests, are at risk.
Yes, they are, definitely. The reason behind is the poverty, extreme poverty, lack of education, no infrastructure, no civic agencies involved in protecting these vital resources.
And, and the specter of future development.
Exactly.
It is a specter. And these environments need to remain nature reserves.
But Tariq, you talk about development and the lack of protection and lack of education. But surely the coastal communities must have some awareness as to how important these mangroves are. I mean, for centuries they've lived among them and in them and with them. So they must have some idea of what is too much.
What do you do when you push a society to exist for survival? When your choices are the immediate survival of your children, the grandchildren to come are not factored in. And we are on the verge of, if not have reached the verge of creating a society of such great problems. I am a firm believer that it is resolvable, but it needs to be addressed, it needs to be talked about, and we need to take action on it. So they are aware. They value their forests. There is no question about it. There's a witness statement in a subsequent video where the gentleman talks about it. His camel had drowned that day, and he was very expressive about the woodcutters and why and what harm they were doing and how he was losing his forest. So no, they're aware. But the survival is for the immediate present, not of the immediate future even.
Yeah, well, speaking of the camel, we're going to move on to that. But I think it's really important for all of us to realize that even in the West, overfishing is done by corporates. It's not the little fisherman who goes out and earns his living. It's big corporate fishing. And I think that's the problem here as well. It's big development that's destroying our natural habitats. So could we have the next video, please? I'm sure nobody ever imagined camels in the mangroves.
These words are very important. Put the subscript This is Ghulam, and this is how he tells his camels that there's water to drink. Gulasan is his son. He is now my friend. This is the place of birds will come to roost. That's what they show.
images at any point. They're part of a substantial documentary that I'm putting together. But this is the day that I filmed the camels drowning.
So camels, ships of, you've never imagined them in the mangroves or in the sea, but it's incredible how many hundreds of camels there are on the islands. They're taken there to keep them safe, and then fresh water is taken out to them so that they can drink. But the camel herders have such incredible stories, so maybe Tariq, you can share some of their stories with us.
Uh, for some other time. There are so many. I have been so privileged. It's just, I'm so grateful to have been able to experience these things. Uh, there has been wonder, there has been this exceptional joy. Uh, it's come with tears because over this last decade and a half, not only have I communicated with the plants and the trees. I can read the water talks. I know the people. The islands I go to are uninhabited. The visitors are transient. They're migratory. The camel herders come and leave. They make shacks there to live in. But I know them as individuals. I know them by name. I know the multitasking jobs that they do. And they're wonderful human beings.
He also has names for some of the camels.
There was Rosie. There's an entire story I'm writing about Rosie the camel. I met her 3 days after she was born, and I
It
followed
was
her.
love at first sight.
Oh, absolutely. And I followed her till her first baby. And I've lost track of her. But apparently, Chacha Yusuf, who looks after her, and Gul Hassan, who is Rosie's friend, each camel herder's child adopts a baby camel and keeps it as a friend, not just as a pet. And the child gives the camel the name. So Rosie and Gul Hassan are a pair. But there are these wonderful stories of humanity, of kindness, of a symbiotic existence. And it exists in parallel with the needs for existence and survival. It exists in parallel with exploitative impulses that we as a society and community, as a economic community, as capitalists function, as socialists function with these. Uh, but, uh, but, but this ecosystem is rich, is deep, and it goes back centuries. The camel herders have been doing this work and have created an entire range of camels who will swim with great pleasure. Not all camels will swim. This is uh, the normal camel, okay? The dromedary. This is the dromedary camel. It's called the Khayal. Not because of any genetic mutation, but because they have evolved to like to swim across channels. The last clip of that camel swimming, she was in 50 feet of water. 50 feet of water, she swam across. Uh, Two camels almost drowned. One did. Why? Because the woodcutters had cut the forest, the camels got stuck in the mud, the herders had to go there at night, they spend the night in the forest on the outskirts, on the inner side of the mangrove, helped them up. The camels were exhausted. The poachers had come, the bird poachers, the falcon poachers. It's another complete story. Taimur and I have actually been taught how to trap and catch falcons, and it wasn't. The information that we were given was not welcomed by the managers of the poachers, so we had to leave. But the poachers had come, so the camels had to be moved, and so these two pregnant camels who were very tired because they'd gotten stuck in the mud, okay, couldn't and didn't have the energy to swim across. Both almost died, and one young child, maybe 10 years old, 8 years old, was standing on the shore watching, tears in his eyes, waiting so that his adopted friend, camel, could make it across. We sent a little boat out. The camel herders are trying to keep her head up. We sent a boat out to try and help give them some tow. Uh, we brought her to the shore, and she died on the shore in front of us. I filmed it. I should have maybe put my camera down. I didn't. But we were requested for a knife because the camel herder said, Tariq, Saab, if I can have a knife, mine is not sharp enough from your boat, then we can slaughter her and sell the meat. But she died before because even my knife didn't arrive on time and was not strong enough for her, or sharp enough for her hide. And a life left. And Ibrahim, no, Ismail, the herder, I know him, he was the first herder. Nurjan, he's the herder we met the first time when you were with me. When you died and all of us were together. Uh, he put his hands down, he turned around without a word, and he walked across to Karangi and left his son-in-law, who was on the next video, to take care of things. But the camel was there for 3 days till the tides took it out. So these are, there's a lot of pathos, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of life. Life and death is part of existence and it's part of our lives. But where it meets with a herd animal and a human being and the very existence, that's a substantial amount of investment that disappeared out of Ismail's, Haji Ismail's life. So maybe continue.
Yeah, there's also a lot of joy in all this because when you see some of the things that Tariq has seen, the dolphins and the mud skippers, and it just really elevates the soul.
Is Hiba going here? She's not here. So Hiba was with me, Taimur, Hiba, myself. We had taken a short trip. And at the golf course, at the Karachi golf course, the dolphins. The Indian humpback dolphin and the common dolphin. And then of course there are the mud skippers.
These are the cutest things ever.
So when we go out, we dedicate our trips to particular life forms. So 3 or 4
There's
trips.
life that here. So many species, so many life forms, seen only when we look. Every centimeter of the mud is alive, on the surface and below. Below the surface is a network of tunnels, homes, and highways, an ecosystem that has been able to cope to the onslaught of pollution and abuse. This is a bloodworm. We use it as bait, and the habitat needs it as a vital aerator of anaerobic soil.
Sometimes even shrimp jump into our boat. When tides recede, shrimps get washed into the mudbank channels, and when our boat enters these shallows, they panic and try to escape, exploding out of the water. These waters are prolific. The shrimps grow fast, 4 months to become large, and the catch is still substantial, even close to the city.
That's dinner
This is
is
because
over.
of mangroves, all in the shadow of Karachi and its uncontrolled development, excessive pollution, and unsustainable practices.
जब जंगल होते हैं उसमें छोटे झींगे होते हैं छोटी मछली होती है उसके अंदर फंसती है जब वो बंद कर देगा पानी सूख जाएगा नहीं तो वो जो मछली मर जाएगी
This is Haji Ismail's son-in-law.
मछली झींगे जो है बेजार जो हो रही है जंगल के अंदर होती है जंगल के साथ ही जंगल काट रहे तो वो जो नहीं पानी रुक जाता है कीचड़ हो जाता है कीचड़ हो जाता है
In spite of the destruction of these mangroves, some of the migrating birds have been returning. and somehow the ecosystems have been coping with the pressure. For me, the most spectacular is the flamingo. The resident and migratory population was large. They left Karachi's islands last year due to mangrove cutting, unfortunately. Some cormorants stay and others return by the thousands. The cormorants feed off the waters of the estuaries, but the flamingos feed on the shores of these well disturbed mangroves. But for how long can these natural habitats compensate? How long before we lose these visitors and residents of Karachi? The flamingos I photographed here in 2018 did not return in 2020. Captain Salim had to sell his own fishing trawler. He tells us why.
पहले तो काफ़ी मच्छियाँ थी हमारे पास तो बहुत होती थी मच्छियाँ चारे के पीछे मच्छियों के चारा है ही नहीं अपने पास और मच्छियाँ भी दूर दूर बहुत दूर दूर चली गई है तो जंगलात में ये अंडे बच्चे देते ये फिर बाहर निकलते तो सारा उसमें जाले में उसमें आ जाते तो उसको बढ़ने
Fish is used for
जंगलात तो
chicken feed.
समझो खत्म होते ही जा रहे हैं आस्ते आस्ते सारा समझो खत्म हो गई
Men walk in the night. They hunt crabs, collect shells, housing life, and seek clams, razor clams. The sun sets on these once famous oyster beds toward Karachi. So much that has suffered because of progress. The struggle to live is real, and commerce carries on, all in the shadow of development.
And there's absolutely no reason why it shouldn't carry on and the flamingos shouldn't be there. I mean, people fly to Miami to look at them, and it's a huge city. It's massive, and it's more developed than Karachi. But they really look after their flamingos, right? People fly there, plane loads to see the flamingos.
The highest amount of cutting was in the year 2020 to 21 and then 21 to 22. The highest amount of cutting. There were days where you could not speak because of the sound of chainsaws. When I went into the forest first 15 years ago, the canopy was about 45 to 60 feet high. Every few years it would come lower. Last month, Shah Karamat Saab is here, who's one of my companions on the last few trips. The canopy is not more than 20-25 feet. The Brahmani kite that needs tall trees to nest in has moved from the island because the nests are too low and they're exposed. The flamingos left the island, our islands. I have photographed in 2018, 2019 flocks of 5,000 to 6,000 migratory flamingos that would come here to nest. They moved to Sharjah and Abu Dhabi because the nature reserves were protected and they felt safe. These
It's
are
not just our millionaires who are leaving with their money. It's
Birds
the birds as well.
the birds they leave. And they came back during COVID. The dolphins came back during COVID. There was a let off, slight let off, but it started again. And the volume of noise and cutting, the overt hostility now in the mangroves by the individuals who cut is high. The pressures are higher. The pressure to live and to pay back loans is higher. It's complicated, but we need to ensure that a certain limited amount of our
our islands are protected and nurtured into nature reserves. It is not just for the aesthetic value and beauty, it is for our health and for the health of our progeny and the future generations.
What about replanting, Tariq? Are they replanting as fast as it's coming down?
They're replanting, but they're replanting in the further delta, which has a lot less water, sweet waters. But they are ignoring this area. I have been accused of why are you worried about only 7% of our delta? And the answer is very simple. We've had this conversation. The answer is very simple because the largest and the most prolific old growth of mangroves is on the islands of Karachi. And why is that? Because we are throwing out so much effluent, untreated effluent, unfortunately. And the Avicenna marina species is the one that can handle the toxic waste that we are throwing out. So all the others are died out on our islands and being brought back on further islands. But the Avicenna marina has been able to flourish here because it's this incredibly magic tree that can handle all of this. This is not a botany talk. We're happy to have a private conversation. But the plantation is happening, and it's exceptional work that's happening, and I stand witness to that as well as to the cutting. But if you don't look after what you have, where you need it, we need the green, oxygen-producing forests. Yeah. The highest amount of oxygen that's produced is by another plant is the phytoplankton, and we are ruining that by not treating the effluent and the waste that we throw out in the oceans. It is killing the phytoplankton that produces the high volume of oxygen. It's encouraging the growth of a morphed new form of phytoplankton that's reddish in color and takes away the oxygen and makes the ocean anaerobic. Everything moves away. We are killing our oceans. There are some UN studies that classify our waters as dead waters. By all means, by no means they are dead as yet, but they will be if we don't do something about it.
I don't know. I feel really kind of heartbroken at this point, but I still think that if there are more people like that going out there, and maybe we can all get companies, corporates, etc., convince them that maybe these are projects that need to be funded, and do more studies on this and push government to act. You won't be eating poisoned food either. Think about that. I mean, all that garbage is going into the water, and your seafood is feeding off that. So you're ingesting that at the end of the day. As I said, those huge prawns are on your table at Okra. But one of the most beautiful things, we started with the sunrise, and one of the most beautiful things I've seen is this thing called bioluminescence. It is absolutely stunning. And Tariq has been out and he keeps finding it and he keeps filming it. And so let's see the video on bioluminescence. And then Tariq, you can explain to everyone what it is and what it's made up of. And if any of you are scuba divers, this is the season to go out diving, and you dive down even 10, 20 feet and you shake up the water, and it's like being in a billion stars. It's absolutely spectacular.
Akbar Sahab, do you think for this segment we can shut these lights? Is it possible? अगर हो सके तो ये कर दें. मैं इतने 2 मिनट बात करना चाह रहा हूँ. Bioluminescence, phytoplankton, zooplankton exists in our waters. The phytoplankton is the highest producer of oxygen. Karachi's breeze, that wonderful legacy that we feel, is now almost like a legend, like a story, because it doesn't exist anymore. That fresh breeze that we used to get in the evenings. I remember growing up in Guru Mandar, and through over the whole city, this evening breeze would come. We'd sit in the courtyards of my grandfather's Haveli, and there were no air conditioners. Everyone slept in one room, because when the air conditioner came, only one air conditioner would run, and about 6 of us would sleep in that room when I was a very young child. But the rest of the day, we would sit in these wonderful courtyards in the evening and have our cups of even as a 5-year-old, I would sit there and I remember like, oh, goodness, one trace of this. Where is it? Uh, we are poisoning our waters. The phytoplankton and the zooplankton is dying, and the amount of oxygen produced on the oceans is reducing. However, we still, and this is important for all of us to know, we live in one of the ecological zones of the world that is a marine hotspot for marine bioluminescence. And I'd like you to experience this. Thank you for shutting lights. None of these images are edited or enhanced. Asya, that conversation, none of them are edited or enhanced. This is off the golf course, the DHA golf course, just beside Karachi. And it's happening now. I was there 2 weeks ago. This was spiritual.
As they say, it's a beautiful world.
I purposely have shown this particular footage because it is off phase 6 and 8, just off Doberia. These are the waters of Mandrel Island. It is a shame to lose this to those buildings that you see behind Mohatta. If you look on the side of Mohatta, you'll see those. 180 of those were slated for the island. It's axiomatic, it's simple, it's the only choice we have, that we need to ensure that the marine protected area is declared here, that the nature reserve is declared here. I'm an architect. I will stand witness that there should not be even a single building built on that island. There's a helicopter.
And what are you going to do about it?
I think we would. We'll talk about that, but I think we have 15 minutes or so. Question and answers, please. Anyone wants to ask anything?
I think you probably need this mic, so I'm going to ask whoever is in charge to take this mic and use it. And if you could just keep your questions brief, because there are a lot of people who have questions. Thank you.
My point is that projecting only the negative part of the society or the island is not appropriate. You should have shown the millions and millions of planting stock being afforested and forested on the lands of Central Forest Department. And a species of Macrolota is being planted, and of the marine officials, it is being protected. And if you have observed, there are millions of seedlings under the canopy of official or marine. So you should have at least shown the efforts of some organization. There is UCN, WWF, Pakistan Navy, Central Forest Department. I don't remember the exact amount, but I am happy.
235,000 hectares
I
have
am
been planted.
35, no,
235.
yes. But let me add more. I did not see clear about the $1 million which the government of Pakistan has earned carbon credits from the coastal mangroves planted and protected by Sindh Forest Department. Let me check anytime, or you can check with the Sindh Forest Department. There are millions of dollars.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think that I did ask him about planting, and he did say that there is a lot of planting, especially around Port Qasim, but not in this particular area where there is sweet water. And that was a problem. And I think that all he was trying to do was highlight that problem, but your point is very well taken. Thank you.
Ayesha, the efforts of the Forest Department, specifically the conservator of mangroves, Riaz Wagan and his team, who have been trained by Tahir Qureshi Sahab, who was a legend, who was this incredible human being, this incredible forester, who have set up a department in the Sindh government that shines like a beacon. And I will also stand witness for them. Today's talk wasn't about the forestry. The plantation is being done. It's being done, and I mentioned it, it's being done in a huge manner on the Delta. The question about carbon credits is a completely different discussion and argument, and we should have it sometime, maybe in a closed forum. It's a questionable thing. I live a capitalist life. Perhaps I've not been brought up fully as one. You know, Jamil Saab is here. He vouched for my leanings on this. But we have to be careful in giving generalizations. Your point is accepted, well taken, and yes, maybe I should have emphasized the fact that the plantation is being done because the work is seminal. I've made a film for it, I've presented it at COP. It is really one of the wonderful stories of this country. The Time magazine covered my efforts in an 8-page spread in their oceans issue because of my work as well as the Forest Department's work in the listing of red and green zones for ecological efforts, specifically on the oceans and marine environment. Pakistan was listed as a green. So no, I'm not a bringer of only bad news. In this thing, yes, maybe I should have emphasized it. I stand corrected. So thank you so much, sir.
Hello. Tariq Sahib, it was a nice presentation actually. Although we know many things, in fact, what is happening here for many, many years. Musharraf, the military dictator, tried to capture Bandan and Dingy Islands.
2008.
Bring people from
No, 2008.
Then Mr. Imran Khan very recently also tried. But it was a struggle of the people of Sindh. Throughout I tell you, that was stopped. Nobody cared about this is what we have to do. My question is that is the plantation only solution or what else is to be? Why is government not looking at that in a proper manner? And the woodcutters will again come after the mangroves were planted. No, What should we do?
The investigative journalism needs to be done. I'm not an investigative journalist. I do perhaps understand and witness. However, the what can be done and should be done. Okay. I would like to show this. Nature reserves need to be made. You leave Bundle Island alone. In 5 years, the 10% that is wooded will become 35, and in 10 years, at least 66%. This is a study that I have personally undertaken at my own cost. Vis-a-vis intertidal zones. Intertidal zones is the level at which the water will go up and down on this, where the mangroves can grow and where the different species can grow. I'm in the process of actually writing a book, trying to collaborate with WWF. I work with IUCN. The Tariq Alexander with IUCN in live, which is, I had the privilege of having one of his last conversations and interviews with me. Which was a very, he's an incredible human being that we have not lost him because his trainees are in the mangrove department and they're amazing people. That is a wonderful thing to be able to say of a government official. And please, a hand, they're not here, but a strong hand for the conservator of mangroves and his team. They're doing a fabulous job and they need to be supported. But plantation is not the only solution. Plantation is assisted regeneration. If you leave Bundle Island alone, the seeds themselves will spread and cover this island up to 66% of this island. It's going to be a natural regeneration. I think we should show the. Is there another question? Sorry. Jamil Saab, thank you, by the way. Jamil Saab is also one of my companions. Okay. And one of the gentlemen who's leaned me towards the pink side of life.
My simple question is, why can't wood cutting be stopped? I mean, is the Sindh government so ineffective? If it is, then as civil society, we need to become more effective to make them stop the wood cutting.
Jamil Saab, you've been witness to this also? I have been witness to a sunken boat where they were salvaging the boat, and so I went and interviewed them. I knew who they were. I knew what the work they did. They were woodcutters, along with other work. I think you were with me, Shahad, that day. And the forest department called me up and said, hello, you know. I said, yeah, what happened? Huh? They said, do you know who sank that boat? So they said, we did. I said, how do you know? He said, was there a concrete block in there? I said, yes, there was. He said, we had a jirga where we caught the woodcutters and gave them a warning. And they were found guilty by the jirga in the village, in Chashmanpur, where they were fined and stopped from the wood cutting. The elders, after the entire jirga, sat together and told the forest department, forgive them, they will not do it again. Don't find them, they're poor people. The cost of the wood that they remove does not cover the fuel that is used to take it out. Please do the math. Please do the thinking as to why and who and what. So the jirga let them off, and the forest department, and to answer your thing, the forest department told them, we catch you once again, we will sink your boat. And there was a young man called Jamali, who they call our Chita. Okay. A young, slight man. He said, हाँ साहब, मेरा कॉन्क्रीट का ब्लॉक था, हमने वार्निंग दी थी, हमने उनकी बोट डुबा दी, उनका इंजन हमारे पास पड़ा है, ठीक है? So they are doing things about it. But what is done in isolation in this country? When the cost of the product that you remove from the forest does not even cover the fuel that it takes, or the dihari, or the daily wages of the people that go out. There are things that my knowledge is hearsay. My knowledge is my assumptions. I'm not an investigative journalist.
But if there are investigative journalists, there are stories here that we need to. Not enough. Not enough, sir.
I think you also need to do something to encourage people to protect their natural habitat. So if you had people going out, paying to go out, so you cover the cost of the fuel, you cover everything. You go out to see the birds, you go out to see the mangroves. I don't know if any of you've ever seen the mangrove flowers. They're absolutely beautiful. So I mean, it's like a nature day out, and you've got what 25 million people in the city. At least 100,000 of them can afford to do this, and should perhaps be doing it.
I have written verses on the scent of the Avasina bloom, and it is the fragrance is of the finest and the gentlest of French perfumes, and you feel it. You don't smell it; you feel it. It has a body. It has a presence that announces itself a kilometer away before you reach the place. That was happening just 4 weeks ago. It was,
Sewage and managed to stop this aroma.
the islands don't have the smell of sewage because the Avasina Marina and those lives, the bacteria under the ground, have sorted it out. Can I just show one film as to what we are trying to do? 1 minute. 1 minute and 1 minute. Please, next one, what am I doing about it? I am a proponent of the need for nature reserves. What happens with nature reserves? There is an entire way forward that's talk that has been shared with officials at the Sindh government, with officials in the forestry department, a year and a half, 2 years ago. The proposals are there, the way forward as to how to do this, the public-private, the public-private partnerships that need to be put in place are identified. It's easy. We've gone to the extent of creating designs as an architect of floating habitations and learning centers that can be placed within the mangroves with the lowest of carbon footprint, that can be sailed out in multiple places, where you can have educational systems, you can have processes uh, that are uh, that are removable, that will be able to sustain them. These are also prototypes for sea-going communities and shoreline communities that will have to cope with sea level rise and with the inundation where the tides will start encroaching in further and further. Uh, the regeneration, these are not planted seedlings, these are natural regenerations. And if you leave the islands alone, where the camels don't come for 5 years to eat the seedlings or trample the seeds, this island will regenerate. The camels can be fed with other species. What will we lose if we don't do that? This. 1 minute of video is what we will lose. A substantial part of this is already gone. When you've witnessed that, you've seen some of that. This is one of the most wonderful experiences of my life when I discovered what it was. And this whole life form and the ecosystems that are so alien to ours, that live in the stage between land and sea, that need both to survive. Plants breathe through their roots, expel salt from their roots. And we will all be.
Thank you, Tariq, and may the force be with you.
Thank you very much.
you hear me? Okay, great. Much gratitude for the work that you do with such passion. And oh, sorry. Thanks very much. And also, of course, Aisha for supporting Tariq throughout, as well as the people. I'm sure that a lot of us will take something with this student. Um, what stayed with me was the survival of the immediate present, and also may the flamingos return.
Thank you.
We have, I'd like to highlight the fact that we do have an exhibition going on, which is the first Governor General of Pakistan um, for the 13 months, and that's by his official photographer, Ziauddin Barni. And it usually is open until 6 o'clock, so when you do come, and we are imagining that you will come next time around, please do if you haven't had a look at it. Also, we have a fabulous team. Thank you so much for all the team members. They're always there to support us. They make all of this happen, frankly. And of course, we have a very dedicated board of trustees. Thank you so much. I would like to invite the director, Mrs. Askari, to give a vote of thanks. Thank you.
Is the mic on? It is on. How can we possibly thank you, Tariq? How can we possibly thank you? You are poet, author, lover, photographer, eco-warrior, patient man, a renaissance man. How can we possibly thank you? Thank you for creating awareness. Thank you for creating visuals that are arresting and can provide inspiration for those who wish to experience it. Thank you very much indeed. And please, Tariq, tell us what we should do. Ladies and gentlemen, there are some rather wonderful refreshments. I would request you to please partake of them and finish off this wonderful experience, at least it was for me this evening. Thank you for coming, and please come again. If any of you are really interested in the exhibition that my colleague mentioned earlier, we can open up the galleries for about half an hour, because our staff, long-suffering, are used to our extremely unreasonable behavior. Thank you.
Let's organize it. Let's take yeah, maybe.